Chapter 1 of J.S. Bach by Albert Schweitzer. Translated by Ernest Newman. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read for you by Chiquito Crasto. The roots of Bach's art. Some artists are subjective, some objective. The art of the former has its source in their personality. Their work is almost independent of the epoch in which they live. A law unto themselves, they place themselves in opposition to their epoch and originate new forms for the expression of their ideas. Of this type was Richard Wagner. Bach belongs to the order of objective artists. These are wholly of their own time and work only with the forms and the ideas that their time proffers them. They exercise no criticism upon the media of artistic expression that they find lying ready to their hand, and feel no inner compulsion to open out new paths. Their art not coming solely from the stimulus of their outer experience, we need not seek the roots of their work in the fortunes of its creator. In them the artistic personality exists independently of the human, the latter remaining in the background as if it were something almost accidental. Bach's works would have been the same even if his existence had run quite another course. Did we know more of his life than is now the case, and were we in possession of all the letters he had ever written, we would still be no better informed as to the inward sources of his works than we are now. The art of the objective artist is not impersonal, but superpersonal. It is as if he felt only one impulse, to express again what he already finds in existence, but to express it definitively, in unique perfection. It is not he who lives, it is the spirit of the time that lives in him. All the artistic endeavours, desires, creations, aspirations, and errors of his own and of previous generations are concentrated and worked out to their conclusion in him. In this respect, the greatest German musician has his analogue only in the greatest of German philosophers. Kant's work has the same impersonal character. He is merely the brain in which the philosophical ideas and problems of his day come to fruition. Moreover, he uses unconcernedly the scholastic forms and terminology of the time, just as Bach took up the musical forms offered to him by his epoch without examining them. Bach, indeed, is clearly not a single but a universal personality. He profited by the musical development of 3 or 4 generations. When we pursue the history of this family, which occupies so unique a position in the art life of Germany, we have the feeling that everything that is happening there must culminate in something consummate. We find it to be a matter of course that some day a Bach shall come in whom all those other Bachs shall find a posthumous existence, one in whom the fragment of German music that has been embodied in this family shall find its completion. Johann Sebastian Bach, to speak the language of Kant, is a historical postulate. Whatever path we traverse through the poetry and the music of the Middle Ages, we are always led to him. The grandest creations of the chorale from the 12th to the 18th century adorn his cantatas and passions. Handel and the others make no use of the superb treasures of chorale melody. They want to be free of the past. Bach feels otherwise. He makes the chorale the foundation of his work. If we pursue again the history of the harmonization of the chorale, we are once more led up to him. What the masters of polyphonic music, Eckhart, Praetorius, and the others strove after, he accomplishes. They could harmonize the melody only. His music at the same time reproduces the text. So it is again with the chorale preludes and the chorale fantasias, Pachelbel, Bohm, Buxtehude. The masters in this field created the forms. But it was not given to them to quicken the forms with the spirit. If all their struggles towards the ideal were not to be in vain, a greater man had to come, who should make his chorale fantasias musical poems. Out of the motet, under the influence of Italian and French instrumental music, came the cantata. From Schütz onwards, for a whole century, the sacred concert struggles for its free and independent place in the church. People feel that this new music is cutting the ground of the old church service from under their feet. It forces itself further and further out of the frame of the service, aiming at becoming an independent religious drama, and aspiring towards a form like that of the opera. The oratorio is being prepared. At this juncture Bach appears, and creates cantatas that endure. A generation later it would have been too late. As regards their form, his cantatas do not differ from the hundreds upon hundreds of others written at that time and now forgotten. They have the same external defects. They live, however, by their spirit. Out of the ardent will to create of generations that could not themselves give birth to anything durable, there has come for once a will equal to the ideal that hovered before the two previous generations, and that triumphs in spite of all the errors of its epoch, purely by the grandeur of its thought. At the end of the 17th century, the musical passion drama demands admission into the church. The contest rages for and against. Bach puts an end to it by writing two passions which, on their poetical and formal sides, derive wholly from the typical works of that time, but are transfigured and made immortal by the spirit that breathes through them. Bach is thus a terminal point. Nothing comes from him, everything merely leads up to him. To give his true biography is to exhibit the nature and the unfolding of German art that comes to completion in him and is exhausted in him, to comprehend it in all its strivings and failures. This genius was not an individual, but a collective soul. Centuries and generations have labored at this work, before the grandeur of which we halt in veneration. To anyone who has gone through the history of this epoch and knows what the end of it was, it is the history of that culminating spirit, as it was before it objectivated itself in a single personality. End of Chapter 1. Read for you by Chiquito Crasto, Birmingham, Alabama.